we're ready for the first panel, and this is going to focus on how the wellness industry is changing and consumer habits are changing, and how technology can play a part. And we've gathered some of the leading names in the fitness and wellness industry, and this is going to be moderated by Kate Cracknell, who's the editor of the Health Club Management. Thank you.
Do a Q&A after each question individually. That's all right, because it makes sense probably just to kind of keep the conversation going. Is that right? Maybe not, I'll keep an eye. I mean, if you don't think I've got it, then give me a nod. Okay. Morning, everybody. Thanks very much for coming along to this session. As they say, Carson says, I'm editor of Health Club Management magazine, which is the leading business title for the fitness industry around the world. It's all available online for free, so I'm not going to spend ages talking about myself. I can just go and have a read of the magazine. But I'd like to introduce you to my panel here. First of all, we have Andy Caddy, who's Group Chief Information Officer, at Virgin Active Health Clubs. He's driving an agenda there that he believes will see the operator renowned for innovation, product leadership, and customer service. He's also a regular speaker on the Internet of Things, the changing role of the CIO, and motivating IT teams. And he previously worked at EasyJet, among other big brands. And we have Anna Gudmundson, who's Chief Executive of Fitbug, which was one of the first activity trackers on the market. It's been around for over 10 years now. She's been with the company for around a year, and during that time, she's transformed it from being a B2C to a B2B business. Next up, we have Humphrey Cobbold, who's Chief Executive of PureGym. Humphrey joined, this is an affordable health club chain for those of you who aren't aware of it. He joined the company from online retailer Wiggle in early 2015. He's since overseen the growth of the company to become the UK's leading health club chain. I believe 165 clubs now, Humphrey, is that right?
As of today, 166, actually, Kate.
Congratulations.
Let's keep with the programme.
Cool. And then finally, we have Philipp Roesch Schlanderer, who is Chief Executive of eGym, which manufactures high-end, very high-tech gym equipment. But actually, in spite of that, Philipp's of the strong opinion that really software is going to be king going forward, and that hardware really is just going to be the conduit for ever-updated software. So I think we've got a really good, diverse panel here. As it said on the agenda, this panel is all about millennials' buying and consuming habits and how conventional businesses in wellness are going to have to adapt and change to meet these changing needs. There are a lot of questions on the agenda. I don't think we'll get through them all in 40 minutes, but we'll do our best. I want to start with the first one on the list, which is today's culture being all about I want it all and I want it now, and how companies are having to respond to these changing expectations through innovation. And Philipp, I'm going to start with you, if I may, given, as I was explaining, your views on hardware really only being there for a conduit, and actually, if it's all about software, really products could change every day. So what are your thoughts on how to keep up to date with expectations?
Well, I think today's customers are more self-confident. So they evaluate after buying whether, the product is delivered what was promised. And so I don't think they're unreasonable. They just evaluate more. And if I promise, the best price for value, then I expect the best price for value. And if I expect high premium where somebody wants to take care of me every day, then I expect that. And I think, that's more like the driver here, that we need to make sure that we work on a very, clear, differentiated product, and we just promise what we deliver. And then we'll be all fine. So I think it's not about that the customers are unreasonable. It's just that they're more self-confident.
Okay, so in terms of actually wanting it all, all doesn't actually have to be a specific entity. It's just what you're delivering. They actually they have to know what they're buying into, is what you're saying, really. And then you have to deliver on that rather than.
I would assume that if the customer wants it all, then this might have been promised during the sales pitch.
Okay. No, that's fair enough. That's absolutely fair enough. I think you're absolutely spot on that. So what do you personally do within your business? I know I've said, very much this panel is about sharing your thoughts as an expert, but do you have any examples of how you might implement this approach to your business?
Yeah, I mean, at eGym, we really try to think very general, how to improve the user experience in a gym. And we work on two topics. One is, usability and one is user experience. Usability, and the other thing is motivation. With usability, we mean we need to integrate everything into one cloud and just make the gym work for everyone and make it very easy accessible. We don't care about supplier ABC. We just, we put together into our cloud all the hardware manufacturers, and also we put together into our cloud everything that happens on the training floor, including trainers and members. And then we basically advance the usability because everything gets more accessible. And on the other hand side, we try to improve the motivation in a sense that as we pull together all data, we want to provide the members with the data in a way that it motivates to show up more often. That's the major goal for us. It's not about accuracy, it's about showing the data in a way that it motivates. And so we have a very clear mission here, and that's also what we explain our customers who are the gym operators. We want to make their members more successful, that they can grow their P&L. And so I think the major difference here is while we started with our own piece of equipment, people were surprised that we actually partner now with all other hardware manufacturers. But we want to deliver what we promise, and we promise a better user experience and better motivation. And so we don't believe that we are alone on this planet, and gym operators will only buy our equipment. And so that's why we rather focus on integrating everything, and where we see there is still a gap, for example, smart weight machines. We thought nobody else brings to the market a smart weight machine, a strength machine. So that's why we manufactured it on our own. But we wouldn't come up right now with our own cardio machines because it rather makes more sense to connect all of them because there are already so many.
No, I think you're right. Yeah. I mean, this is it. There's too much silo mentality, or there has been before. And I think, the whole point with data now is people do expect all their data in one place. Yeah. And if you are putting barriers in the way of that, then that's not going to work for the consumer in the end. And I wanted to come to you as well, because I know you are now B2B, but you obviously have a lot of experience in B2C, and you also have, I know you were saying, a lot of data on millennials. I'm just wondering what your take on, what is it they want? What are they after?
I think, talking about how you need to adjust and sort of how organizations need to work in order to address this audience. They are the first generation that used tech as play versus tech as work. So a sort of old school platform with drop-down menus and loads of content is really not going to work for that generation. So I think it's a whole different type of organization, and everything is going to have an interface. We're not talking about hardware manufacturers. Everything's going to have some kind of digital interface. And in order to address this continuously evolving market and also the demands for change and so on, it is a completely different type of organization. We need to continuously innovate. It's other methodologies and processes. It's very culture-driven, and so to continuously have new ideas that you test out and iterate on a continuous basis. I love this kind of companies. I love this environment. That's why I do what I do. But I think for traditional businesses, they very rapidly need to transition into that mindset and sort of change quite dramatically the way we've been working in the past. So I think it's a shift in order to address this segment that has completely different expectations on tech.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've just grown up with it, haven't they? I mean, it's we're having to learn it, our generation, and it almost for them, it's just so much a part of life. It's like it has to be so, the experience has to be just seamless, doesn't it? Really, that's a very different approach to constructing it in the first place. Andy, I want to talk from an operational side of things. Because if you look at what's going on in the fitness market at the moment in terms of the sort of clubs that are popping up, we're seeing, one of the things we're seeing is a big growth in boutiques, for example, the boutique studios. And what that's starting to suggest is when you're talking about the millennials wanting it all doesn't have to mean a full breadth of offering necessarily anymore. All is quality, is the top level experience in the things they want to do, and they're happy to go to specialists to get that. And I'm just wondering, as a full service operator, how do you respond to that, to people's actual desire for very, very perfect delivery of every individual thing they want rather than a club?
So I think what we see today is a real split in the market, especially in the UK, a real split in the market between the low cost and value operators and the sort of high touch premium operators. And the mid-market, like in anything, when I was at EasyJet, same thing, the mid-market is slowly eroding, quite quickly eroding actually. And that means it's at the level we operate at, the expectation's incredibly high. And Your question said about, do people want it all? I'm not sure it's about wanting it all. I think it's about having an elevated level of expectation. I think everyone's expectation of the products and services they receive have moved immensely in the last 10 years. Up against transparency. People want transparency. They want to know what they're getting, what they're paying for. They don't want any hidden, small print, all the rest of it. So I think when we see some brilliant, really great boutiques coming in and challenging the market, what that does for us is really give us a challenge in looking at what do we do in terms of our services and products. And for us, that means where we need to be a bit sharper on our game in terms of offering products that can compete, are as good as or as good as the boutique operators, but in what is it different about us? We can provide it in a fuller offering, so we can give you more than just a great cycle class or more than a great yoga class. We can give all of it. That's a challenge. That is something that's really changed in the last 5 years. I think the expectation of someone just rocking up and joining a gym and staying for however long they stay for and being satisfied, you've got to keep on your toes now a lot more. I think there's more observation of the marketplace. There's more really trying to understand what people are doing and trying to respond. I think we spend an enormous amount of time looking at trends across the industry, what's happening in the States, where the next big thing is going to come from. We spent a lot of time looking at functional training, at spinning and group cycle, looking at holistic stuff in yoga and the rest of it, so that we understand where we need to respond to. And I think that perhaps that was something that wasn't there 5 years ago.
And I mean, one of the things we are seeing, not so much in the UK yet, but certainly overseas, the States quite a lot, is the sort of club-in-club trend. There are some places like Les Mills in New Zealand have their own branded in-club studio that stands apart as almost a separate entity. They have Tribe, which is a cycling studio. Chain it's called. But in the States, you see things like David Barton Gyms, which is a big brand, partnering with cycling studio Psych Fitness, for example, to actually have a third party delivering a high quality cycling boutique within their club, which their members will get discounted access to, but then they at least know that they still get the footfall into the main club. They might get cross-selling into that. And I think that's quite an interesting trend, because it's sort of almost acknowledging that they're not going to do it as well as the boutiques. And I just wonder, is that something a Virgin Active would ever look at doing?
We've looked at all sorts of those things, and we observe that stuff closely. We look at what's very interesting, what Equinox are doing with SoulCycle, in terms of they haven't merged those products, and they have two separate followings that you would think would logically cross over, but they've created their own experience in terms of cycling there. For us, we've got a good product development unit. We've got good innovations in that area in terms of cycling and functional. And I think I think for us is really trying to establish, using and establishing our own brand. So that's our strategy that we'd like to carry forward. I think in the UK market, it's a very crowded market. It's one of the most crowded markets in the world. And trying to establish yet more brands or utilise more brands, I think you're placing your bets, and you've got to be able to choose that really carefully. I think in a much more mature market like the States, where there are bigger, larger brands that you might want to back, I think that's probably a good strategy. For us, we are pretty sure that we can do this good enough as well enough for our own members without having to get external people involved.
Okay. Humphrey, I wanted to ask you, because obviously PureGym, probably surprising to a lot of people as the low-cost operator, affordable, I know you hate the word low-cost.
It doesn't always look so low-cost to me, so I look at the cost every day.
Then launched a boutique studio. You have Pure Cycle, Pure Ride.
Yep.
That, probably bucked the trend for a lot of people, thinking, it's been more the sort of the high-end spinning off and doing boutiques as well. What was your rationale in doing that?
Yeah, let me deal with that very briefly. The rationale was we felt we needed to do something different and not allow, we've rolled out 166 gyms over the last 8 years, built up a membership base of 800,000 members. It was interesting to hear Michael saying that 1 million people went cycling in Mallorca last year. 1 million people attend our gyms this week. To put it in context, we're by far the largest fitness and brand and franchise now in the country. Many of you won't have heard of us yet, though, but you will over time, I promise. We felt it was very important for us not to go stale on that proposition and just roll out large gyms on an established model, and so we felt it was important to experiment, and we treat Pure Ride just around the corner here in Moorgate as an experiment and a piece of R&D, and we're learning a lot from doing that. It's a completely different proposition. But the issue of technology for millennials, and I guess I feel I can talk a bit about that. Of our 800,000 members, 600,000 are probably in the definition of millennials. They're sort of age 30 and under. And I've worked in and around the technology arena and online for the last really 17, 18 years, since I was in the newspaper industry, which was one of the first industries to be hit by the growth of online. And there's really, there's an awful lot one can say about technology, but if there's one sort of single truth that I think is important about it and to keep in mind at all times, it is what technology does for people. What it does for people is it puts power back in their hands. Historically, companies had the role of defining the packages and products that people were allowed to buy because the interface costs and costs of providing products were so high. Technology eliminates almost all of those agency costs between pieces. And it says to the consumer, through this device, you choose. And the millennial generation, fundamentally, when you interview them and talk to them, they say, in essence, don't tell me what to buy, give me options that are clearly displayed and easy for me to choose what I can buy, and allow me to make my choices about how I use my data and what I do with all of that. Fundamentally, the balance of power in all industries, and fitness is one of the things I'm fascinated about being in the fitness industry. I'm in this part for 2 years, and I was in Wiggle for 4 or 5 years, is observing the impact over time of putting that power back in the hands of consumers. And I don't sort of buy that they're the want everything, want it now generation. They actually don't want everything. They want what specifically they want, and they don't want to be made to buy a whole load of things they don't want because you're saying it's good for them. So I don't believe in the sort of the overall sort of packaging up of everything. I mean, as we're the disruptors in the gym industry, we've taken out swimming pools, cafes, Turkish baths, saunas, receptionists, salespeople. I mean, let me just ask a question. Who woke up this morning and said, today, I want to buy a 12-month contract? I'm not seeing a big sign of hands. Anybody want to buy a 12-month contract for their mobile phone? Not really. Often now you're still forced to do it. Most of the millennials won't do that. People want the flexibility to buy the product that they precisely want out there. And as we develop we've rebuilt the whole of our technology platform in the last year. I did the cheap shot trick that one does. I went out and hired my old technologists from Wiggle because they're a good bunch of guys and got them to come and rebuild the technology for me at PureGym. And the fundamental purpose of that was to give us the flexibility to maximize the number of options that we could provide to people. And the people who are best at doing this are, Amazon does a brilliant job, Netflix does a fantastic job. If you look at what Zoopla does in the online data and property management space, those are the people that we look to. Because in general, the fitness industry is coming from an asset base, and it's a great industry, but comes from an asset-based industry basis, not really thinking about the sort of that fundamental shift in the technology that's going on. But if you keep that one, to kind of close out this comment, if you keep that one thought, that this generation has had the power put back in their hands, and they expect to be able to conduct everything, and when I say everything, I really do mean absolutely everything, through that screen and that device. And everything has to be enabled through that. Everything else, in essence, flows from that, be it data, be it product decisions, be it commercial decisions or anything of that sort of nature. That's how the piece fits together for us on the technology front.
In fact, there's a new chain of health clubs launching in Denmark this week,
there is.
Repeat, which is very specifically targeted at millennials. Everything they've done is like literally analysing exactly what they want, and exactly that everything is through the mobile.
I mean, you'll enter and leave by scanning a mobile. We'll be doing that within about 12 to 18 months. The technology's got a little bit further in availability. Everything will happen in that way. You'll be told each day or each week what you've spent in the gym or what you've spent in stores. It'll just be running that way. And that's what this generation expects. They expect to live their life through this bit of kit. They don't use it as a phone, as you've probably noticed. Anybody's got teenage kids. The idea of this being a phone is trying to get a 22-year-old to answer the phone. It's always on silent. Just won't happen. They use this as a device for running their lives.
I think the other thing that Repeat's doing, which I think is quite interesting, though, is obviously, as you say, the low-cost clubs have already broken a lot of the issues down by getting rid of the contract. So millennials want flexibility, 100% on pricing. That's one of the big things they are after. What Repeat and actually a couple of other even low-cost operators are starting to do is add even more flexibility into their pricing, which again can be done day by day through their mobile.
Correct.
Do they want to be pay-as-you-go? Do they want to be a weekly membership? I mean, in Australia, there's one, Fit and Fast has gone. No, actually, Fit and Fast has gone a different way. They've actually added in a premium level and 30% extra for some more classes, and 70%
It's
of their
funny you say that,
membership.
Kate. We launched a premium offer this week in 5 gyms because, it's all about EasyJet. Who flies EasyJet here? No shame in flying EasyJet, is it? We all fly EasyJet. No, not at all. Great product. And you can choose to fly EasyJet at 3 o'clock in the morning and pay 32 quid to go Mallorca with your bike or without it, Michael. Or you can fly in summer at 11 o'clock in the morning, and you're probably paying £300 for that flight, and you'll probably add in speedy boarding and extra legroom and priority seating. You can, even within the value offer, you can offer ranges of choice that, as long as people can still make those choices, absolutely fine. I mean, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
And we do daily access. People can come for a day, 3 days, 7 days, a week. A month. They can buy 12 months in advance from us if they want. They can do what they want. But the point is, the choice goes back to the consumer, and they don't want to be told by us anymore that you must buy this because we've decided it's good for you. We can price it and we can set it, and they choose.
Yeah. And one of the other tech trends, obviously, is very big at the moment is virtual classes, Andy. And I'm just wondering if that is something that is of interest to you at all. So I know obviously some of the budget clubs are bringing it, the low-cost clubs are bringing it in because it's a way of offering classes when they don't have live instructors. But increasingly, the high-end clubs are bringing it in too. And what's your view on virtual?
We use it in some of our clubs around the world. So in South Africa, we use virtual training, and it's great. I mean, I'm a big fan of it. I think it has its place depending on the offering. So in some of our clubs, where our clubs are very different to Humphrey's clubs, the expectation is it is a much more sort of human touch, service element-led experience, whereas virtual is a self-serve, and it's got its place, and I think it's good. I think it's developing. I mean, we've developed, the way we took cycling was to gamify and add it, and we've got our own products around that to create a sort of more interesting experience, and we think that's, for us, that's the right route. I think for virtual, where it's, as that product develops, it's a good offering, and we'll continue to use it where we think it works. And I think it's one of those things where when people expect choice and they want to do things at the point they want to do it, as we've talked about, I think that's where it's really got its place, where you've got a facility these are very expensive facilities we run, whether it's us or Pure, that's still a big investment. And you want to get the most out of those facilities. So virtual is perfect for that because people can come in and they can do, you can have 2 or 3 people doing a class of their choice. I think the big question for me, though, is really whether that's what we're talking about, or whether we're talking about the need and requirement to train when I want. Because actually that's a different question.
Which is exactly what I was going to ask next, and potentially even maybe you as well, Andy, but also Anna, because obviously with Fitbug, that is the whole point. You are tracking your data wherever you are. And this is one of the real big things I think that's coming through, which is it was probably as long ago as 10 years ago. I was speaking to Homes Place, and they were talking about a new concept, Homes Place to Go, and it was going to be a Fitbug and advice once a month in the club, and that was it. You were going to pay a very small membership, and you weren't even going to use the club facilities. Now, that was almost before its time, but it's kind of there now, and this is increasingly what millennials want. They want to, exactly say, train when they want, total flexibility, and your sort of technology is facilitating that.
Yeah.
And I would first of all, like your take on it, and then perhaps from one of the operators to talk about how you might react to that with your models.
I think that in general, taking very much the approach, obviously making the platform device agnostic, integrating with other apps, and also, the whole sort of openness idea and partnering, with, as you said, with a machine, although that's where you came from, in the same way as Fitbug came from devices, and now we're very happy to integrate with all other devices. And also what metrics we're looking at. So the point is, what is the end goal that we're trying to achieve? And so if we're obsessed with everyone in the organization logging everything, I sleep very well. I don't need to be reminded about my sleep or reminded to go to bed or having loads of sleep content sent to me. I might be reminded to have to leave work at some point and to plan when I'm going to exercise. But I think that's an incredibly important part. If you're a swimmer or you're a cycler or whatever, we have to be open to allow people to sort of engineer their well-being themselves and then support that through very personalized and data-driven conscious and intelligent use of technology. And I think there's a huge opportunity there. And that's obviously the route we're taking.
So, Philip, please.
Yeah, so maybe I share a little story of my life. I met a couple of weeks ago the founder of Duolingo. That's the world's largest language learning app. They're based in Pittsburgh. They have more than 100 million users, language learners. And we realized that we can learn a lot from them because there's a big analogy between the gym membership and language learning, because it's a lifelong project. Progress is hard to be measured, and especially in particular, the starting is really demotivating. So what can we do to kind of get all our members in the right cohort? That's what they think is well, right? How can we get them in the right cohort with a low churn path? And so they've developed a lot of logics, they call it chunking and unlocking, right? So you're always just a little bit away from the achieving the next level. And so that was one of the major retention drivers. Not like, you're just 10 years away from being fluent in Mandarin. Or, you're only 3 sessions away from the next level. And that was a major driver, and you can see that when you download the app. They were very much focused on that. Mm. Another thing was, and that gets back to the basically daily activities of life, another thing is they provide you with daily streaks. So how many days in a row did you use the app? And rather than piling up what has not been completed, they're piling up what has been completed. And when you're on a 14-day streak, meaning you use the app for 14 days, and you're not going to use it today for 10 minutes, you're going to lose what you've achieved already. So and I'm a strong believer in that. And we think a lot right now. How can we provide the members with data that it's part of their daily life? That's the secret source of success for us as well. Just work a little bit every day for the rest of your life on it. Mm-hmm. And typically our members wouldn't show up every day to the gym. Mm-hmm. So what can we do? We can integrate with companies like Runkeeper or Fitbug or so on, and mix that together with the gym experience. And then we can be part every day on the routine and make them successful. And that's what we all need to do. We need to rather focus on, having a successful product rather than optimizing on the gap between subscription and activity churn rate, right? So, that's why we need that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I was wondering if either of the operators would like to just briefly talk, if either of you are actually implementing this sort of technology and looking at how you can embrace what your members do beyond the club.
Well, we've gone out there and been quite open-minded about supporting activity outside clubs. We're a core marketing partner of the Great Run Series, which is the largest organizer of running events in the UK. The Great North Run, obviously, is this weekend. We'll have several teams up there doing things, and so very participative in that. But we've taken the decision that there are many people better set up to provide the technology integration. But you'll be clear about what you're going to be good at. And we don't think we can build a better fitness app or integration. There are plenty of guys much more capable than us there. But that our facilities should be open to those where possible. We'll make the equipment available so that data can be easily downloaded. We provide free Wi-Fi in all our gyms because everybody wants to remain connected even when they're in the gym. And we make ourselves as open and accessible to that sort of provision of data and management of data. But we can't go and come up with a better app than MyFitnessBuddy that's been downloaded 185 million times, or how many times it is now. They've got much greater scale to be able to do that, and what you guys are doing has always been better. So
that's my pitch. Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Yeah. So we say let that happen there. Make sure that those people who want to, and it's not everybody, can use their data where they want to, make ours work with them. We'll provide great facilities that are open 24 hours, that are clean, highly proficient, super affordable, flexible approaches to using them, so anybody can afford to come on a duration that they want to come. And the rest, in a sense, it's this sense of giving the power back to the individual who can decide how they want to do that. And make it as available as you can, and do your bit for their piece. But don't feel you have to do everything. And own everything. So that's our sort of approach.
We'll probably need to move on in a minute to at least get a second question done. But I want to ask.
So I'll just cover a different angle.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting, and that's in our South African market. We've got 700,000 members in South Africa, and about 60% of them come through Vitality, the health insurance company. So you're a Vitality member and you get low-cost gym membership as well as a bunch of other stuff. It's similar to how we do the scheme in here, but the scheme over here is much smaller. Vitality is massive in South Africa, and in that situation, the demand of the user changes actually, because they're very interested in what they're getting from their health insurance, and we're a partner, and we're working very closely with them about how you relay that information back to the member. So we are currently working on all integration of wearables, because Vitality in South Africa expect you to go to the gym a certain amount of times in the week. They're very demanding of us of the data exchange. I think this brings a whole different range of sort of issues and developments and how we'll see the market change, because it's one thing at one end of the market to be self-serve and it's about choice, which is very correct. There's another point where when you start talking about companies exchanging and sharing information, the demands of the member to know what's going on and where their data is going, I think is incredibly important. I think we're in a bit of a wild west at the moment, but that's going to develop over the next 5 years. How you receive and use that information and what you do with it, because actually that's really where we're all heading. That's where we want to get to. That's Philipp's right. It is all about software, and in fact, I'd go as far as it's all about data more than anything else. And we're so early in the journey. So early in the journey. You know, when I look around at what we've done over the last 5 years, it's 10 years since the iPhone. It's 5 years since we started seeing devices appear on the market. It's still point solutions. It's how many hours you slept. It's how many steps you took. Where is the insight? How do you use that? We've got 1,000 personal trainers in this country. It's one of the largest bodies of knowledge. Trying to tap into that. So it's not just the top 10% of our members who can afford personal trainers. It's everyone who can get all that information. That's the problem we all need to solve over the next couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, interesting as well, so we're talking about millennials, but actually as technology is changing, you know, you look at some of the data that's coming out saying, well, actually the prime online gamer is actually a middle-aged woman, for example. This sort of data is starting to come out. So actually, is it just millennials? They may have different expectations because they've grown up with it, and as you say, Humphrey, the interface needs to be perhaps far further ahead. But actually, this is not just a generational thing, is it? This is just what's happening now, and the whole market really is adapting to this. So this isn't just a millennial trend really here.
I think the millennial angle is getting a bit tired in terms of what people talk about, because really millennials are, you know, anyone under is about 30 downwards, which is a very large population to be talking about as an exclusive group, as if it's some sort of unique individuals who no one else has the same traits of. I think expectation has risen immensely over the last 10 years. When was the last time someone had to explain to you how to use a phone? You get a phone; they're all pretty much the same now. But can we all remember? Well, I can. I'm old enough and ugly enough to remember the days when someone would present you a phone. You go, "That's quite clever. How do you use it? What is it?" These days, our expectation is, of course, this stuff will just work in a moment. And I think you apply that to everything else and say that it doesn't matter whether you're a millennial or whether you're a middle-aged woman in her 40s or 50s. You don't want to spend time trying to understand technology anymore. That's such an old concept. Technology should be an enabler. It shouldn't be getting in the way of anything.
Absolutely. Realistically, we're probably only going to have time for one more question before we go to the audience. We'll probably have to do it quite quickly at that. So I just want to actually ask the audience. We've probably got two interesting ones to choose from, which is purchase of wellness-focused services taking longer to shift online, or future trends. And I was wondering if I could get a show of hands, really. Who would like the purchase of wellness online? And future trends, the rest, I'm guessing. Okay, then future trends it is. So really, I know you're probably all going to have very strong, very diverse opinions on this one, so we'll try and get through you all in sort of 5 minutes and then have 5 minutes for the audience. What future trends do you see coming down the line? And I think perhaps let's not even just talk about millennials, let's just talk about in the way everybody is adopting wellness and their consuming habits of that wellness. And also briefly tell me why you think that, not just what's going to happen, but why. Let's just go down the line. I think, Andy, if we start with you.
So I think there's a couple of things. The expectation is a much more end-to-end connected journey for people. I think today people are expected to sort of piece it all together themselves, and that's great, and it's sort of fun for a while, but actually what you want is something that is a seamless transition of your sort of fitness and wellness journey, whether that's your health information, whether that's your fitness, your nutrition, all those things need to start playing into each other. And we're coming from a world where this was all very siloed. Just as recently as sort of 4 or 5 years ago, everyone was trying to own the market in those different places. People have woken up recently to be much more sort of integrated about this. So how can I pass my information? But there's still no standards. There's still no, if you've ever had to try and do some of this stuff in these areas, the way one person measures heart rate is very different to the way another person measures heart rate, steps, different currencies, Nike points, Technogym have got a thing, everyone's got different ways of measuring this stuff. So it's very early days, but what we want is for people to have a connected journey, and that means that they will move across products and move across companies, and they expect to be able to do that. They expect to move from one place to another place and not lose their information and not start again, because actually those days of you are bonded and loyal to one brand have gone by a long way. And so I think that's what we'll see, a much more connected journey and a recognition of the fact it's not just about the box. So you know, we build boxes, Humphrey builds boxes. It's not just about those, it's about everything else outside of that. How do you bring that stuff in? I think we've seen big communities of people following, you know, with a Fitbug or a device and a YouTube video. And that's their fitness regime. So how do you become appealing and relevant for those people?
Yeah, completely agreed. And actually, to your point about the data portability, I believe there is new legislation coming in 2018 in the UK, isn't there, which actually says that a member can actually go to their gym and say, I would like to take all my data with me, and you have to give it to the competitive gym and you can't keep it. So, you know, times are catching up with operators for sure. Anna, your thoughts?
Right, so where to start? First of all, I think that, you know, there is definitely, I'm also a bit tired of the sort of millennial, you know, if we define that 18 to 35 and so on. And I think in general, it's people just born at different stages. But there are also some really interesting trends and sort of effects of having grown up with technology in a different way. So if we tie this to the wellness area and technology, so first of all, it's a generation that can't live without technology, but typically not the people who can fix the printer. So it's not necessarily a savviness on how technology works, but can't live without it. So absolutely the expectation of seamless, and I think that if we're going to see a trend, and it's definitely the route we're going, it's more partnering. So you're really, really good at what you do, and then you partner with the right people. So I definitely believe in much more openness and integration, and obviously all the aspects of how we manage data becomes incredibly important there. Then some other trends, well, interestingly as well, the number one source of wellness information for millennials is their mother. This came out of the Trans-American Center for Health Studies or something like this, but obviously they're very used to using apps and so on and have very high expectations there. Another thing, just from the health and wellness perspective, which is sort of not what you would expect from a group primarily in their 20s, is the high level of mental health issues. So very high reporting of anxiety, of depression, and so on. And they're aware of this as well as you know, some concerns about obesity, but I think that's general. So if we see a trend in the wellness space, I think that there is definitely an opportunity there to go much more towards the preventative. And that is something I see as incredibly positive, and obviously we're all in that space. So they're very aware of that, and with conscious use of technology and intelligent use of data, and obviously really good user experience and so on, I think there's a possibility to engage in a very relevant way with and have that generation lead. Because of the very, very quick uptake, we have huge you know, uptake and engagement in that segment at Fitbug as well. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And as I said, to kind of go much more towards working together with the right partners to create really sort of big change in the industry. So aspects of collaboration, partnership, data management, the user experience, I think are absolutely key.
Okay, yeah. Humphrey.
A couple of quick trends to keep strongly in mind. Data compression and transmission and bandwidth will continue to improve massively. I mean, when you look at the structural movements in those and in the cost of storage and that sort of thing over the last 5 or 10 years, it's phenomenal. That's going to go on. That will continue to enable all sorts of things just more smoothly. And you know, clunky services and the days of dropouts of 3G and 4G services will go away over time. Ubiquitous bandwidth everywhere. That will make people much more even more connected, even more of the time, whether they're in gyms or whether they're running in the park or whether they're out on a bike ride connected directly through to Garmin Connect on the climbs in Mallorca or wherever it may be. So all that will continue to enable much more. People will therefore find ways, as people said, of integrating their data and everything that's going on much better from every source, whether supported by legislation or not. People will find a way of doing that. I do think the need for community will remain. Indeed, the need for community will increase. People like doing things with other people. Most of our people who attend the 4,000 classes that we run every week across the UK do so with friends. They want to be in a room with people. They like that. They like running with people. People run on their own as well. Big mass participation events in this country in cycling, running, swimming, and triathlon are experiencing a massive development over the last 10 years. So people are doing things with a purpose in mind, and we shouldn't lose sight as we talk about technology of the ultimate purpose and end in mind is doing those sorts of things or getting themselves a bit healthier and a bit fitter. But those are the sort of things that I think we'll keep in mind for the future.
Yeah, and I completely agree, Humphrey. And to be honest, if we go back to the boutiques briefly, that's kind of where they're doing so well, is they're creating this sense of tribe, and that really is what millennials are after. They want to belong. It's almost like they've become so isolated in this sea of technology that actually they go and find places where they have like-minded people. So, you know, there is a balance here to be struck between in-person and technical.
Yeah, so software is, one of the things that is great about software is that we can tailor the software to many different user groups without marginal costs. And as we all know, that software is basically eating the world, and our users are used to great products that perfectly fit to their needs. And I always compare that. Right now I see a lot of users of gyms going to the cardio machine and press the quick start button. And it's just because we are a mass market. We are so many people going to gym. It's the most popular sports, right? So they're low engaged, of course, because there's such a big group. And then they just go there and press the quick start button. But it's not that they don't want to get their tailored program. They're just low engaged. And so for them right now, approaching a cardio machine and pressing the quick start button is like, you know, you go to your car and you just press on your navigation system the quick start button, and you don't know where it's getting you, right? So you rather prefer knowing that it brings you to your goal, to, I don't know, Bath or to London or to losing weight. But we cannot expect more. That's why at eGym we always, in our product decision committee, we always have this one thing where we say we cannot expect more than this, but then already the product should be tailored. And that's possible with software. And software is not so much about only for millennials. It's also great for active agers, for example. We realized just different user groups appreciate different parts of software. Active agers, for example, highly appreciate our cloud system, that, you know, they know for sure they can't do anything wrong. They just need to swipe a wristband, and it's going to be their tailored program, and they can't do anything wrong. And millennials, of course, appreciate higher like social aspects, training with your friends, and also, you know, receiving data that shows them progress. So it's just like depending on different user groups. And software, that's the fantastic thing, makes that possible. We can tailor the products to very particular need without incremental costs.
Cool. Garden, have we got time for one or two from the audience? Cool. Rob?
I'm interested. Hold on. Hi, Rob Gregory. I'm interested. You're obviously all very aware of what's happening as a panel. I'm just interested in what things frighten you in the future, because you're very clearly, you understand what's happening. You understand where the markets are going. What are the things that actually you think this could be a real issue for me, in the future?
I mean, I'll put one out there that's just a personal thing that I'm worried about is the rise of virtual in terms of headsets. I think that's a brilliant technology, and it's probably one of the most natural technologies I've seen people adopt. So in the last couple of years, I spent a lot of time looking at 3D headsets and what they do, and it's been the most I've seen in terms of people immediately responding to it since the iPhone. So the iPhone was the first device you got hold, and people immediately went, oh, this is amazing. And there's not been a lot since, really. It's an all iteration. Putting a headset on and people seeing it was amazing. Why is that an issue? Well, it's brilliant for some things. Long-term patients sitting in hospital who want to be taken away from their room, awesome, great use of that technology. People sitting on a couch experiencing something, that's not good. That's the antithesis of what we're all trying to achieve. But it's so compelling. I'm very worried about that, as that will be the next stage of technology in the household, actually. So it's kind of, how do we make sure that when that technology lands, and it's going to land, when we get away from these big bulky headsets and it's just a pair of glasses, that will happen in the next 5 years. How are we going to stop that being the thing that stops people getting out and using their devices, or using a club, or using some sort of fitness regime? That's going to be a big challenge for us.
Building on that, do you have any fears, Andy, of, for example, as technology gets smarter? You're talking about, interpretation of data, and the personal trainers could do that. But we're already starting to see a generation, for example, as a headset that's going through Kickstarter at the moment, I believe, and it's coming out, I think, January, called V, which is an artificial intelligence personal trainer in its headphones and it sensors around your neck, and basically you talk to her and she talks back and tells you what to do. Now, that's going to start to undermine potentially the offering as well, unless clubs can reinvent another role.
I think we've all got to respond to that. I mean, if I had £1 for every Kickstarter thing that I've seen that looks like it's going to be awesome, I wouldn't need a Kickstarter or even to do this job.
Ultimately, they will.
It's going to come. It's going to come, and I think the rise of machine learning and AI is going to be really interesting and massively helpful, because the big issue I face is how do you systemize some of our knowledge? And actually, you couldn't do that 5 years ago. You can kind of do it today, but certainly in 5 years' time, you'll be able to do this sort of stuff. So I think. As I said earlier, it's baby steps to the member right at the beginning of this. Connecting these devices, all these things in a smart way that uses my data that's relevant to me is the big challenge we've got.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? At the back there?
Can we comment on that?
Oh, do you want to comment as well, Anne? We've just got so little time. I'm just. Do you want to, Anna? Do you want to comment before the question's answered?
If not, if we don't have time for more questions.
Go for it.
All right. No, I was just going to answer that question and really, sort of make that really big. I think that at the moment, what's changing the world is not politics; it's technology. It changes industries, it changes our behaviors, it's changing such a lot of things, and in the sense that we elect politicians and they have to go through some scrutiny, whether we agree with that or not. Technology leaders that change the entire world aren't going through any kind of training, aren't being scrutinized. And so having been part of exponential growth technology for 10, 15 years, where does the consciousness come in? And so I think if there is a fear, is that all these cool things are coming out and it goes really big and it completely changes how we behave. And then, okay, so why are we now seeing all this anxiety in millennials, or how is this affecting how we engage? Is it great to have companies that have the whole global industry in certain segments and so on? And these aren't choices that we are making on how we want to create a country or even a global economy. And so I think that if there's a fear there, it's okay. This is a kind of very rapid and very unplanned development that is obviously accelerating at a very high rate. There's loads of different areas of that are very, very interesting individually that are very, very rapidly accelerated. But I think that is a little bit sort of, we're so early, we don't know what we're doing, but we're moving at an incredible pace.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question at the back then, please.
Before, customers now want an integrated experience. They want data to be relevant. They want nutrition. They want something that is personalized overall. So how do you think that ecosystem is going to look like in 5 years from now for you? And how do you think you can act on it today in the best way possible?
Who would like to answer that one?
Well, we use, so I think that's where the data come in. And I think it's an expectation. So now in our mobile experience, and obviously this is for the corporate space, but each individual will be served data that's completely depending on what they're doing and what they're interested in. And we're also working continuously and looking at much more into data science. And obviously we have the whole artificial intelligence coming in and so on. So I think that we're now getting at a stage which is incredibly exciting, where we can actually go to that very, very personalized and individual level. And we've been interviewing a lot of experts that work with the individuals. And we sort of studying how they get to know how they're going to lay out a program to really support this person. And they will have a conversation. They will just know that this person will need a lot of variety, or this person needs to have very consistent routine that they do all the time. And they know this from a lot of parameters that we now are starting to be able to implement in a digital way. Then obviously there's loads more engaging, and I've taken some time. But I think that obviously where the data technology is going right now, we really start to be able to give an incredibly personalized experience.
Philip, do you want to? So you've got lots of data in your system as well. Have you got anything to add?
I mean, I totally agree. Like we can use software and data just to tailor the product to the needs of the users on a very personal level, and we can learn what motivates this particular user, and we can even then develop further the product. In software development, you call that basically agile. You're looking at data, and then you improve and the product, and that's how we do that. So I have for my different products, whether it's the machine software, whether it's the member app, or whether it's the personal trainer app, I have like very self-organizing teams, and the only KPI they need to show me is an increase in usage. and they decide their feature developments based on data. So they test what kind of features are more appreciated and less, and then they develop further in that direction. So that's why it's sometimes interesting when I speak with gym operators that are more from the old world, where basically the headquarter makes a corporate decision how the user experience should look like, and then you basically develop a 2 years roadmap, and then you develop everything, every step there. That's totally different than how software thinkers are. We would rather just see what do users appreciate. For the initial product, we have to make like an hypothesis. So for example, once we learned from Duolingo that this chunking and unlocking has been so successful for them, we just had the idea that how can we take that into our member app, and we translate it into our so-called activity levels. But then from that, we measured again, what do the user really like, what does they like, and we update every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks we learn and we update. So it's like it's tailoring, but also learning from the members. And so altogether, that increases the product dramatically.
Perfect.
It's an exponential growth of user experience then.
Perfect. We're going to have to stop now. There's so much we could talk about here. I'm sorry, we've only touched on a few of the questions, but hopefully it's been useful to you all. Thank you very much to the panel.
Pleasure.
And,
Thank you.
You're welcome.